Well, hello. Welcome to a new episode. In this episode, we're going to be dealing with John chapter 3. This is an interesting one. It's about Jesus and his interactions with Nicodemus and some questions from John the Baptist. And Jesus clearly says what you need to do to be saved, to be right with God. And in reading this week really helped me with a personal question I've always had. You know, this passage contains one of the most fantastic verses in the Bible, John 3:16, and it has another passage that has caused me a lot of questioning, a lot of difficulty. So let's learn about both today. Let's learn together. John chapter 3, 3:1. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to him by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him. Jesus answered him, Most certainly, I tell you, unless one is born anew, he can't see God's kingdom. Nicodemus said to him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus answered, Most certainly I tell you, unless one is born of water and spirit, he can't enter into God's kingdom. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of the spirit is spirit. Don't marvel that I said to you, You must be born anew. The wind blows where it wants to, and you hear its sound, but don't know where it comes from and where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. Nicodemus answered him, How can these things be? Jesus answered him, Are you the teacher of Israel and don't understand these things? Most certainly I tell you, we speak that which we know and testify of that which we have seen, and you don't receive our witness. If I told you earthly things and you don't believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? No one has ascended into heaven but he who descended out of heaven, the Son of Man, who is in heaven. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God didn't send his Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world should be saved through him. He who believes in him is not judged. He who doesn't believe has been judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the one and only Son of God. This is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and men love the darkness rather than the light, for their works were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light and doesn't come to the light, lest his works would be exposed. But he who does the truth comes to that light, that his works may be revealed, that they have been done in God. After these things, Jesus came with his disciples into the land of Judea. He stayed there with them and baptized. John also was baptizing in Enon near Salim, because there was much water there. They came and were baptized. For John was not yet thrown into prison. Therefore, a dispute arose on the part of John's disciples with some Jews about purification. They came to John and said to him, Rabbi, he who is with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he baptizes, and everyone is coming to him. John answered, A man can receive nothing unless it has been given him from heaven. You yourselves testify that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him. He who has the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom, who stands and hears him, rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This, my joy, therefore, is made full. He must increase, but I must decrease. He who comes from above is above all. He who is from the earth belongs to the earth and speaks of the earth. He who comes from heaven is above all. What he has seen and heard, of that he testifies, and no one receives his witness. He who has received his witness has set his seal to this, that God is true. For whom God has sent speaks the words of God, for God gives the Spirit without measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hand. One who believes in the Son has eternal life, but one who disobeys the Son won't see life, but the wrath of God remains on him. May God add blessing on the reading of his word. So what did we learn about John chapter 3? This contained this famous dialogue between Nicodemus. And he was a man of the Pharisees. And Jesus said this amazing thing in verse 3. Most certainly I tell you, unless one is born anew, he can't see God's kingdom. In other versions of the Bible, it says born again. And Nicodemus says, well, you can't go back into your mother's womb and be born again, can you? So Jesus says we have to be born of water and the Spirit, And it says, in Jesus, let's try again. So what do we learn from John chapter 3? This is the famous dialogue between a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus and Jesus. And, Jesus said, I tell you, unless one is born anew, he can't see God's kingdom. Other versions say born again. And Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? And Jesus said, well, you have to be born of water and spirit. Unless you do that, you can't enter into God's kingdom. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. You have to be born again spiritually. So Jesus said, how can these things be? And Jesus said, are you the teacher of Israel and don't understand these things? I was always confused by that as a young Christian. I mean, why is he mocking him? Was the Pharisee supposed to understand about spiritual rebirth? I find that interesting because this must have happened in the Old Testament then. And even though they were under the law, they must still have understood these things. And then, they go on and, it starts in verse 14. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Moses lifted up the serpent that people who were dying of diseases could look at the serpent on the pole and be healed. It's why doctors have this pole with a serpent on it. It comes from that look at the pole and you can be healed. Then he says, whoever believes in him should not perish. Just like they were healed from disease, they shall not perish, but have eternal life. And the most famous verse in the Bible, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. What a beautiful passage. God sent his Son, right? So we would not perish, but have eternal life. And I always thought that was interesting how it said, he should not perish. Perish means you die or you rot or become useless. If a fruit perishes, it rots. You got to throw it away. So, but have eternal life. So I've always noticed that the comparison is between eternal life and perishing. So it's not between eternal life and eternal suffering, as some people say what hell is. No, it's between eternal life and perishing, eternal death, some people call it. Interesting. But then a lot of people miss verse 17. For God didn't send his Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world should be saved through him. So he's not passing judgment on the world. He's coming to save it. So if you believe on Jesus, you can be saved. And then in 18, he who believes in him is not judged. He who doesn't believe has been judged already. So that's the judgment, is not believing. So then in the end of this, there's some dispute. Why is everybody coming to Jesus now and not John the Baptist? The it says in verse 25, therefore a dispute arose on the part of John's disciples with some Jews about purification. They said, Rabbi, he who is with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, behold, he baptizes, and everyone is coming to him. So they were looking John the Baptist to be the main guy. And John Baptist said something that always bothered me. In verse 30, he said, he must increase, but I must decrease. And for some reason, when I was a new Christian, I got it into my head that I must become a piece of dirt nothing. That, God has to be absolutely everything. I become nothing. So I lose my personality. I lose my intellect. I just have to blindly believe. I don't get any free will or free choice or anything. I just become nothing. It took me a long time to see this, but that's not what he says. What he's saying is he had a ministry. He was announcing Jesus coming. And so his ministry is still there. He's still baptizing. But Jesus now is on the scene. And he's the main purpose. John was there to announce Jesus. But now that Jesus is on the scene, John's ministry is going to decrease. It's not us personally. It's his ministry must decrease. And that makes sense. You announce Jesus, and of course, your ministry is going to get a little bit less, and then a lot less, because Jesus is going to take over. But he's happy about that, and it goes on to talk about a bridegroom's friend, and his joy is for the bridegroom, right? He's very happy about this. So, and then finally in verse 36, one who believes in the Son has eternal life, but one who disobeys the Son won't see life, but the wrath of God remains on him. So quite a lot to say here. Believing on the Son, you can have eternal life. And my personal question answered, we don't become nothing. John's ministry becomes less. Not a bad thing. He's done his job. Well done. Now it's Jesus's time, and he's going to carry on the ministry the way it should be. So a lot to say today. I hope we can enjoy it all, continue to learn together.